Right guys, we have more case listings for the budget iPads and also some details regarding the specs, and so let's delve into it. So to begin with, the ESR cases that of course I delved into in previous videos are now official, so you can officially buy this before the launch of the budget iPads, and this is supposed to be somewhat accurate. But as I've said in previous videos, while I'm sure the dimensions and the cutouts for the case are perfectly accurate, the front that's shown in the renders completely make no sense, because this essentially being an all-screen iPad at $399 would cannibalize the iPad Air. So yes, I ultimately think my smart price is right, and we're getting the iPad Air chassis, but of course with an iPad 9 front. Since, as I've said many times in the past, case manufacturers are basing these cases off rough CADs and leaks they've heard, they do not get information regarding the products before release, and so yes, I'm still doubtful about this. And to make things even more confusing, there are other case listings that show a landscape Face ID module on the iPads. And again, I have my doubts over this, because Dylan DKT told us iPad Pros would be the first to get this, and that would make sense because generally the iPad Pros do get everything first. And so yes, I would not be surprised if this case listing is of course for the M2 iPads instead. Anyways, continuing with the confusing information, Makotakara tells us we could get the M1 chip with the base iPad. Now this is very confusing and makes completely no sense, because let's say theoretically this iPad gets an all-screen display on the front, then this getting the M1 would absolutely cannibalize the iPad Air 5 and would make that completely redundant, because one could argue that even with the iPad 10 getting a major redesign, the Air 5 would of course have M1 exclusive features, and some people might care about that, but if M1's coming to the base iPads, then yeah, there really is no point getting the iPad Air 5. And so yeah, this is not going to happen. The M1's overkill for the budget iPads. Expect the A14, or of course, there is always a chance Apple does reuse the A13 chip. And to be honest, for what people do on budget iPads, that chip's perfectly fine. They also mentioned Touch ID is going to be built into the power button, which again makes no sense. I don't think we're going to see this. I firmly do believe the home button's going to stay on the front, since visually this iPad needs to look different to the other iPads so that they can upsell you on the higher end models, and so giving this a forehead and chin makes sense. And yeah, Makotakara telling us this will be a bigger version of the iPad mini 6 absolutely makes no sense, because that's what the iPad Air 5 is. And so yeah, some of these leaks are completely unrealistic. Definitely temper your expectations with this iPad. Really, there are only two parts of this report that make sense, and that's Apple Pencil 2 support and a USB-C port. And that's to be expected when of course this iPad's getting the new flat sides. However, interestingly, Makotakara does say there might not be a smart connect on this, and I doubt that again, because the whole point we're getting flat sides is to give this support for the existing smarter Magic Keyboards Apple sells for the iPad Pros. Since, do remember, with the budget iPads, they usually recycle accessories from higher end models, and so yeah, this adopting the smart keyboards and the Magic Keyboard from the iPad Pros does make sense. And yes, I know the Magic Keyboard itself is basically the price of this iPad, but I think the regular Magic Keyboards could come down in price, and we see a Magic Keyboard Pro instead, with more features like additional ports or a function row that of course fills the current price point. So yeah, for iPad Pro consumers, they can go for that and get additional features, but for those wanting the basic Magic Keyboard experience, they should hopefully be at a lower price. Even if that's not the case, I guess you can settle for the smart keyboards or go for Logitech's keyboard case instead. So yeah, that's basically everything from these new tidbits, but now let's delve into your comments. Sunyoxty says, I really like the current design of the iPads, aka the traditional iPad design. Apparently it's super nostalgic, and they would not mind if it doesn't get a redesign. And I'm basically in the same boat. I could care less about this getting thinner bezels. I just want Apple to give us a panel that's laminated. And so yes, I'd much rather Apple does reuse the iPad Air 3 design instead. So Evan Rogers says it's shocking if Apple does not update the OG iPads annually going forward. And yes, I'm pretty sure that Apple is going to continue giving us annual updates with this iPad because it is their most popular iPad, and so constantly refreshing this with new features is important. And yes, I know the iPad 10 was supposed to release at the September event like they usually do, but of course there's been iPad supply issues, and with a redesign I'm sure it's tougher to produce, and so this year's the exception, not the rule, so do expect the iPad 11 to release in September 2023. So Ramon says, do you think the change to USB-C on this iPad will provide this with video output? And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. And no, this won't need Thunderbolt. The iPad Air 4 I believe does support video output, and it has a regular Type-C ports, and so yeah, I'm expecting the iPad 10 to follow suit. However, do remember there's going to be ugly black bars on the sides. This won't be getting the new version of external display supports the M1 iPads have. Saren says, I'm on a low budget. Is the iPad Air 3rd gen with the pencil still good in 2022? And yes, I think it's a pretty solid purchase. Obviously, do remember you do get a better chip and center stage support with the iPad 9 that of course is going to come down in price once the iPad 10 arrives. But if you don't care about that and you just want a panel that's laminated and want pretty good performance, then yeah, definitely do get it. I mean, I still have a 10.5-inch iPad Pro and that is perfectly fine for my use, and so if you do find the iPad Air 3 for a good price, definitely do get it. Seven Rogers says Apple is going to start differentiating displays across each iPad model, for example double stack OLEDs for the iPad Air. Now this, I completely agree with. Until we see OLED or mini LED on the iPad Air, I don't see Apple giving us a full screen display on the budget iPad. Because imagine if a customer does walk into a store and sees the iPad Air's panel's much brighter and has better colours, that's going to be a major selling point and would upsell consumers. But if they have the same exact display tech, then most will just get the iPad 10 instead. So Eldine says, I just want a larger entry-level iPad. I want a bigger screen but don't need the extra price of the Pro and of course the additional performance that comes with it. And I'm actually in the same boat because I do want to try out a 12.9-inch iPad. I've been a fan of the 11-inch size, but I do want to experiment with a bigger size. The thing is though, I can't justify the high price for it, and so yes, I would be very happy with, of course, a budget 12.9-inch iPad. And actually, sort of related to this, there have been murmurs about a 14-inch iPad Air in the works, and while the report does not make a ton of sense to me, if that does materialize, I could see myself getting it. Anyways, tell me your thoughts regarding this report in the comments. Anyways, thank you for watching guys, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumours. Check out the video in the link above on details regarding the iPhone 15 series, and on that note, see ya peeps.